Easy Patreon. So in this video, we're going to look at compression and we're going to try and debunk any myths and any kind of misinformation about compression and kind of go over, you know, what is compressors, different types of compression, how you would use it, and kind of make it so that you guys can feel more confident when using a compressor in your music and the different types of ways to kind of, I guess, use a compressor in a way that benefits you as electronic producers. So yeah, getting into it, what is compression? So if you believe that, you know, using a compressor is something to kind of make a sound louder, then yeah, you've been misinformed, and yeah, I hate to say it, but you're wrong. A compressor is something you use to control the dynamic range of a signal. So I'm going to say that one more time. A compressor is used to control the dynamic range of a signal. So what is the dynamic range? That is the difference between the loudest and the quietest part of a sound or signal. So for example, you're in the studio and you have a singer, and in some parts of the verse, that singer may hit a note where it's a lot louder, and then there could be parts, i.e. like a bridge or in the chorus, where the singer sings more softly. Those differences is your dynamic range, and that is where a compressor comes in to kind of make the difference between the two more consistent, so that on the track it feels that like it's a constant level throughout. You can still keep levels of dynamics so that soft parts are soft and loud parts are loud, but you still want it to be clear so that the listener can still understand and hear each part of the track. So you might also notice that there's different types of compressors out there available to use. And between all of them, you have like a tube, which is like a classic vintage, you may hear, compressor. And they're known for having like a slow attack, slow release. Because of the tube components inside the compressor, you also get an additional bit of color when you use it to compress. This can be something which, you know, you want to add into your audio. You also have a FET for like field effect transistor compressors. They're known for being pretty quick. Again, they also add a little bit of color to your sound. They're usually used for like drums and bass. And then you also have like an octo, pretty like, they say neutral compressor. And then yeah, you have like your digital compressors, which might be like, yeah, anything you use like in the digital realm. And yeah, you got your VCA compressors, and yeah, again, they're kind of known for being pretty quick, very fast compressors, and again, kind of used for any kind of signal with like loads of transients. And yeah, again, if you push it a bit hard, you can get some distortion in it. So that's something to be aware of, or that might be something you kind of want out of it. And, you know, being aware of the different characteristics of these different compressors can also help with what you apply it to. Some compressors sound amazing on vocals, some better on drums, you know, some better for basses, some better for mixing and mastering. So yeah, these are all kind of things which I intend that by the end of this, you guys can kind of like, yeah, be more decisive on where and how you use compressors moving forward. So I'm going to open up Ableton, we're going to get a compressor up, and we're kind of going to go over all the controls, and then yeah, I'm going to give you guys some examples, and yeah, we can kind of just see different ways to kind of use compressors in a way that relates to us as digital producers. Cool. So in front of me, I have a old project I was working on a long time ago, and yeah, I kind of thought this could just be like, yeah, a good way of demonstrating different ways of using a compressor and different techniques. Maybe I might have to bring up one of my mixdown projects just to kind of show some other examples, but yeah, this will kind of do for now. So I'm going to give you a quick little play of the track, and then yeah, we can have a look at compressor controls.
Now you can come out, creeping out the foot. Yeah, I'm now black, welcome, hey, creeping out the foot. Yeah, I'm now black, welcome, hey, creeping out the foot. Yeah, I'm now black, welcome, hey, creeping out the foot. Yeah, I'm now black, welcome, hey, creeping out the foot. Now you know I'm out here hard. Creep, creep, creep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Creep, creep, creep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Creep, creep, creep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Creep, creep, creep. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring up Ableton's default compressor, and then we'll have a quick look at some of the settings on here. And yeah, these are gonna be pretty much settings you're gonna see on most compressors. We're gonna kind of go over them on this, and then I might use my go-to compressor, and then we'll just try some stuff out. So here's the different settings. You got your threshold, which is the point where your compressor starts to work. So if the volume exceeds your threshold point, then the compressor is going to reduce that level or that decibels. And we can kind of see it by here, the gain reduction. So if I bring this threshold all the way down, we can kind of see the gain reduction is how much the compressor is reducing the volume by. The ratio is how much the compressor reduces the volume. So 2:1 is a very gentle compression. This kind of says that if the volume exceeds the threshold by 2 decibels, it's going to be reduced by 1 decibel. So if I have 8 decibels exceeding my threshold, then 4 decibels is going to be reduced by the compressor. The attack is how quickly the compressor reacts to the input signal. A quick attack will mean that your compressor is almost instantaneous, if that's a word. A quick attack means that your compressor just works instantly to the input signal, and a slower attack will mean that you are intending on allowing some transients to be unaffected by the compressor, so that the compressor can, compress the tail or body or remaining elements of that signal rather than certain transients or initial transients. The release is how long your compressor stays activated for, and your compressor may you may want a long release. This is normally used if you want to kind of have like a more glue or more kind of like consistent type of compression. Or you may use a quick release where you may be compressing something like drums or something more percussive, more transient, and you need your compressor to be more reactive. You have a knee down here. So your knee is, you may hear like soft knee or hard knee. And this basically means how quickly, so your attack is obviously how quickly your compressor reacts. But the knee is almost like, when the compressor reacts, is it more of a softer reaction or is it more of a harsher reaction? So you might be able to, so you can see it on the display here. So as I bring this up, you can see that the arc is becoming a bit more curved. So this is now turning into a soft knee. So the compression is going to be more gentle when it activates, rather than if I bring this down, which was called as a hard knee, where it'd be more sharp. And you can kind of see, let me turn this ratio up a bit, but you can kind of see that like, it's just as soon as like the volume hits this threshold, it's just getting snapped straight down, rather than if I have like a larger knee, you can see like, again, this kind of curve. Your type of compression, so some might allow you to choose how it works. So peak compression is where your compressor just reacts to peak transients. So again, like I kind of mentioned, like with drums or stuff like that, where you want it to be more reactive to the input signal, you may keep it as a peak compression. You may have it as RMS, which stands for root mean squared, where this is kind of where your compressor works over a long period of time. It works on the average volume rather than just initial transients snapping over your threshold. So this may be something you would use if you're mixing and mastering, or if you want something to sound a bit more natural and a bit more glued together. And then over here you have expander, where, or also known as upward compression. This, if I can explain this correctly, this is almost like a soft gate. That's how I like to think of expansion. So what this does is that it boosts any signal that goes above the threshold rather than reducing. So with this, you may use this if you want to increase the transients of certain sounds. And I kind of use expansion or upward compression on drum buses sometimes. You may see that like the SSL channel plugin, the SSL channel strip plugin, on its function you have gate or expansion underneath the compressor, and sometimes I always use the expansion to kind of just get in those little nugs and kind of make the transients just feel a little bit more separated. And then also you have makeup gain, which normally sometimes is set to auto. So your compressor might naturally kind of work out that if it's reduced by X amount, then it will make up for it, so that the level sounds the same. I normally take the makeup gain off and do it manually just so I can hear what the compressor is doing. I know, almost forgot. You can also have auto release, where again the kind of compressor kind of just works based off of your input signal. So rather than using that compressor, I'm going to use the FabFilter Pro C, just because this is my go-to compressor. I use this on everything. So knowing what we know, straight away I can kind of just see all the functions on here, and I know how to kind of approach using this compressor now that I know what the threshold means, what the ratio means, attack, release, and the knee. The makeup gain that's here is called the wet gain, and we're going to ignore the range, the hold, and this dry, the wet and dry, because for what we're doing we don't need it. So let me turn this threshold all the way up. So when compression, this is more of a mixing approach or more of a corrective approach. I like to use compressors on buses more time. The reason for this is that us as electronic producers, we tend to use a lot of samples, and in your drums, as you can kind of see, let me just drop this. In your drums, as you can kind of see, if you use a lot of sample or MIDI like myself, we're just repeating the same sample. Sometimes you may change the volume a little bit, or you might have like slightly different velocity, but more time we don't really add a lot of different dynamics in each instrument in comparison to somebody who plays a drum. If you record in a live drum set, that kick drum is not going to hit exactly the same every time. That snare is not going to hit exactly the same every time. Neither is that hi-hat, neither is the toms, neither is the cymbals. So that's why when it comes to live instrumentation, you need to compress. If you are a producer that's recording live instruments, then you will probably have to compress it so that it can fit and sound more natural and fit well and more consistently with the rest of your track. If you're somebody like myself who uses a lot of samples and synthesizes a lot of sounds, adding a compressor to individual tracks could end up making your track seem a bit swallowed and choked. And it's one of those kind of things. I learned this after a long period of time when I first started off, I used to put a compressor on everything, and my tunes always sounded very boxy, and I just couldn't work out why. And then the more I learned, the more I realized is that I'm overusing this function and it's actually taking the life away from my production. So now when I use compressors, unless it's for a creative reason, which we'll kind of go over, on a whole mixing side, I tend to use compressors on group sounds where there will be difference in dynamics. So rather than me having a compressor on my kick and a snare and my hi-hats and my claps and stuff like that, it don't need it. All I need to do is just make sure that those elements are clean, and then on my drum bus, I put a compressor on just so that I can make them all kind of just squeeze and fit together and yeah, just feel a bit consistent. So let's kind of go over how we'll do that. So we can kind of hear that, like, yeah, the snare's kind of coming up a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this threshold down. And the reason I turned off the auto gain, if you already noticed, is because I want to hear, I want to be able to A and B and hear what I'm actually compressing. I want to A and B the signal and work out what exactly the compressor is doing. So if I bypass this now, let's play this again. And like I kind of mentioned, so far it's been pretty gentle. I can push it a little bit more. This is probably why I really like using the Pro C, because you can really push the compressor and it still sounds very natural and gentle. So when I A and B it now, you can kind of hear that, like, that snare that was really popping out now is kind of just being tucked back in alongside the rest of the track. And now they all kind of just like feel like it's all being, yeah, around the same sort of level. So then what I would do after, once I kind of feel satisfied, I mean, to be honest, so what I would do after, I will look at my gain reduction. So I can see that, like, roughly my drums is being reduced by -7.5 dB. So what I may do, in fact, let me bring this input signal down a bit. Bring it down by 1 dB. Just clicking a bit. Bring it down by 2 dB. 1.5 maybe. I'm just going to bring the input down just a touch. Just because, the reason I'm doing this is just because it's clipping on the input. Cool. So now we can see that, like, yeah, the signal's being reduced by 6 dB. So what I'll do now, I'll just turn it up by 6. 6 is quite a lot. I might turn it up by 3. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it up by 6. Just so that, you know, with the makeup, I'm making up what is being reduced. I kind of like I said, I like to do it manually. Some have auto gain, but yeah, I kind of do it this way just so that I know exactly what's actually happening. And sometimes I find that like the makeup gain might be a bit too much. It might overcompensate, and you may find that you might see that your gain reduction is like 6 dB, 5 dB, and then you match it and you feel that actually it's a bit loud. I can turn it down a touch. So yeah, let's have a little listen. So what you might notice is that like the kick has definitely got more energy now. That snare, which was a lot louder before, is now more consistent with the rest of the instrumentation. And this is because what you're doing with your compressor, you're kind of just like, you're bringing down all of these transients, all of these kind of sounds which are like sticking out and causing issues, or yeah, just being a little bit too loud. And then once you kind of tuck them in, you just bring up the overall level of everything up to kind of match what you've reduced it by. And then by doing that, the overall sounds, all the other elements may increase in volume, but like you're not, I mean, you can see on my channel strip on the side, I'm not clipping, I'm not going over what it already was. I guess that it's a little bit hot. I can probably bring it down a touch. I could probably bring it down maybe 5.5. But yeah, that's how I would kind of go about using the compressor on buses. So I would do this on my drums. I would do this for vocals. I would do this for my melodies. I would link all my melodies up together. So this is what I would kind of do with like, yeah, kind of just making up any kind of sounds that feel like the kind of same sort of tonal quality or same sort of elements, or elements that I want to glue together better. I would kind of put them in the bus, and then I'll put a compressor on them. So let's have a look at a creative technique and more about like shaping transients. So got this snare, and let's say I wanted to make this snare tighter. So using again the Pro C, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the threshold down a bit, turn off this auto again. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the release quicker, but I'm going to increase the attack. And I could bring that threshold down some more. Could even just do a hard ratio. So let's have a little listen to the difference. So with the compressor off, we're hearing more of the room, we're hearing more of like, yeah, that body of that snare, more that reverb. And then with the compressor on, what I'm kind of doing, I'm just like, with this setting, so slow attack, fast release, what I'm doing, I'm allowing that initial transient to still come through and be unaffected, and then the compressor just comes in straight after and just brings down the body. I could even make the release a little bit longer. I mean, if I had it all the way up here, you can hear how tight it is now. See if I did. So this is how you can use a compressor to creatively shape a sound. So this is what you may do this with, like, you may see some artists do this with, drums. So if you find that you've got a boomy drum and you're like, it's too much body, I want it to be more punchy, then this could be a way you would do, like, either a fast attack, slow release, where like you can kind of see on here how tight it is now, or fast attack, fast release, where you might still want to keep some of that body in. So let's look at if I wanted to make a sound more punchy. So let's get rid of that compressor. Let's have a look at this kick. Probably not the best kick to use for that example. Kick is pretty very heavily processed already. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna quickly throw a kick in here. Loop this. Okay, cool. Right. So let's get the Pro C again. Let's have a little look at this kick. So I'm going to turn this input signal down a touch. Bring it down 2 dB. Cool. So if I wanted to make this kick a bit more punchy, I would still keep that fast attack, but maybe I would use like a slow release. And I'm going to bring this compressor down quite a bit. Use a more gentler ratio. And I might actually fast attack, fast release, just so that I can get that transient. So it's saying I've got about 7 dB gain reduction, so I'm going to bring it back up by 7 dB. And let's bypass that. So you can hear the difference. With the compressor off, it sounds a little bit more boxy. We can hear the room a little bit more. And with the compressor on, it just feels a bit tighter. It feels a bit more punchier. And you know, maybe I can even turn the ratio up a little touch. Maybe if I change circuitry, so there's about 9. Maybe up to Cool. Yeah, the Opto's adding a nice little bit of color, and we can hear like how punchy that kick is now in comparison to that. That kind of feels a bit flabby. It feels like an acoustic kick a bit, and this kind of just got a little bit more energy to it. So this is how you can use the compressor, like I mentioned before, to shape a transient to work to what you want. So if you're noticing that a sound needs a bit more punch, you might use a quick attack, quick release. If you kind of want it to be a bit more, if you want to get rid of the body and you want more transient in it, you might use a slow attack, mid to slow release. So these are ways where I guess if you have problems in your mix, you can use these compressors to kind of like these attack and release settings to shape your sound to kind of fix any issues. For an example, on a tune before, I had one where there was a little bit of like room reverb on the vocal. So just using the attack and release settings, I was able to kind of just still keep the vocal nice and crisp and all the transients of the rapper at the time, but using a compressor to kind of just like help strip away all that background reverb noise sound, and then so that I can add my own reverb and make it all kind of feel a bit more natural and clean. So yeah, like the main thing I kind of wanted to get across, which I kind of mentioned briefly, is that like, yeah, using a compressor from productive or from so the main thing I kind of wanted to get across is just, yeah, using a compressor from the electronic producer's perspective. Like I mentioned, a lot of us use samples. So when you're using a compressor in a creative way, if you're shaping a sound, or if you're using side chaining for a pump. So let's just quickly do that. As you may have seen in many of my videos, I tend to just use like pumping plugins, but obviously you can use your compressor to create the same effect. So if we got my bass here, and then got a compressor, open up the sidechain function. I told it to listen to external audio, and then if I say I wanted to listen to my kick, bring this back up. And we can hear it dipping to where the kick would be. Might bring the release down a bit. Let's bring the drums back in. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we've kind of looked at, I guess, mixing kicks and basses before, but yeah, this would be potentially a creative / mixing way of using a compressor. So yeah, main thing is not to overuse a compressor, not to kind of just like throw it on any track because you think that it's something to do. Have an intention and a reason behind why using a compressor. I see many producers and artists use it, and I kind of feel that like some of them throw it on out of habit, without knowing initially why they're doing it. And like I kind of said briefly before, once I learned each function of a compressor, I found myself using it a lot less. And when I did use it, I felt that the effects of it outshined how I used to, and it stopped my music from sounding boxy and very swallowed and choked, and it allowed me to control the dynamics of certain elements or add groove and movement, but it all kind of just gelled a lot better because I was using compressors in a manner that worked better for myself coming from an electronic producer's perspective. So again, one more time, I know I'm going to be repeating myself a fair bit. You know, if you're recording live stuff, vocals, instruments, even like field recordings where you're going to get like loads of spikes and dips, then using a compressor will definitely help controlling all of those elements. If you find that you've got a drum sound or a pluck sound or any kind of sound, really, you've got a sound which you need to shape, but you don't want to use a transient shaper. You kind of want to be a little bit more gentle with it, or you find that you need something to be a little bit more punchy, then using the attack and release settings on your compressor, you can create those kind of effects, or you can kind of get those elements out of a sound which you want to preserve or you want to control, and kind of just start making everything kind of feel more natural. You know, a lot of the samples we get, they tend to be already compressed and already mixed and mastered, so that's why you would rarely see me use a compressor on an instrument track if it wasn't a recording. If it's like a sample, like I kind of said, like my kick sample before, you can see how boxy that was. I mean, say boxy. The first one, you can see how rounded off it was because you can tell it's already been compressed. It already had a bit of distortion to it. So adding another compressor to it is pointless. I'm just gonna suck away any kind of energy in life it already has. So I hope all of that kind of makes sense for you guys. Maybe we might have to do another one. I feel like compressors is always something you can kind of just go over time and time again. And we can probably look at parallel processing or something. But, feel free to drop me a message if you guys have anything. This video should get you guys feeling a lot more confident when using a compressor in your productions. So till next time.